This tutorial is going to cover some of the options available to us in the Action Apps object properties. The Easy Stitch software will add 2 side tabs to your workspace, one of which is the Action Apps object properties. This is for changing our stitch properties. There will be different options depending on which type of stitch you've applied to the object, and some of the options will overlap. Let's just go ahead and make a shape here. And I'm going to apply a run stitch to it. Now you can see that I have my run stitch options available to me in my Action Apps property. You can see my stitches here. Over here though, I can adjust my stitch length. Just type it in and hit apply. I can adjust the run style. The first 4 here, run, 2-ply, bean, and half bean, those are all pretty standard run stitches. If I change this, however, to programmed, I then have access to all of these decorative stitches. I can just actually scroll through here, choose a design that I like, hit apply, and you can see that how it's changed. I also have an option here for needle up. That's how I would make it so that no stitches are applied, but the machine is moved. Here, like for an example, if I made one vector line right here, I can apply a run stitch to this, but make it a needle up and hit apply. Now what this would do is this circle would stitch out, then stop, and then it would pull the needle up and move the machine this way, bringing your hoop towards you. So this is how I could set my machine to stop stitching, bring my hoop towards me so that I could apply an applique or something like that. Down here, let's go ahead and click back on that. I'm going to go ahead and make it a run stitch again. I can set my drop stitch to ensure the proper placement of run stitches. I can choose from at anchor, none, and cord gap. At anchor drops the run stitches and penetrates at the anchor point at the top portion of a curve. None actually forces the run stitches to follow the stitch length setting. Cord gap places the stitches to fit curve smoothly by shortening the stitches at the top portion of a curve here. It works in conjunction with the minimum stitch length and the maximum cord gap distance. Next, let's go ahead, let me get rid of this guy. I'm going to go ahead and make this a steel stitch. Now we have our steel stitch options over here. I can adjust the width of the steel, typing in 5 millimeters. See, now it is wider. Plus, I can adjust the inset percentage. See how it changes that? The inset percentage is actually just where on the vector path the steel stitch is being applied. Now let's go ahead and instead of a steel, we'll make this a complex fill. And here we have our complex fill options. I can change my fill pattern. You can see how it changes here. The stitches for our fills are set at a 3.5 millimeter stitch length. If I want to change that, I just click on Override Stitch Length. And I can manually type in the stitch size I want. See how it's adjusted it over here. This is also where I can adjust my density. The space between the rows here is the distance that this applies to. So if I decrease this value, my design becomes denser and tighter. If I increase this value, you can see that it becomes less dense. There's less stitches. So yeah, the value that the density is applying to is the stitch, the height stitch between each row here. I also have my connection end. I can choose chiseled, square, or sharp. If I choose square here, you can see how it changes my ends here. It adjusted a bunch of them here. If I choose sharp, it makes my ends very pointy, very sharp. And then chiseled kind of looks like these little angles here. And then when I'm on chiseled, I can also adjust my chisel length, my chisel distance. If I go ahead and change the length here, you can see that now it's this distance right here. So I set it at 1.5. Now it's sharper. If I change it to 2, you'll see it even gets sharper. So that's what the chisel distance is. When I'm on a complex fill here, there is another drop-down menu that's available to me for the complex fill, which is the complex fill effects. This is where I can change the traveling route, which is this line right here in the center of my design, which you can see. There we can see a little bit better in pink. If I click on my beads edit tool, which shows my start and stop point, they are actually right here at the same point. So my machine is starting here and stopping here. So what this means is it is going to start entering here, it's going to travel down to the bottom and then stitch my fill all the way back up, and then it's going to end here as well. So this is the traveling route. It is set at a long middle right now. I can change that also to a long end. If I hit that and hit apply, now the traveling route is stitching along the edge of my circle and then filling in. However, if I wanted just to eliminate that altogether, I just move my start and my stop at opposite ends here, then I actually don't even have a traveling route at all. So, but that is what the traveling route means. Let's go ahead and make a satin stitch next. I'm going to use my brush tool, my artistic media, to make this curvy little shape here. I'm going to go ahead and go to Arrange and Artistic Media Group Break Apart, which is going to make this a vector shape, just like that. Click on the Auto Satin path. Now you can see that my satin options have become available. Right now the pattern is set on satin. That is the most common for the satin path, but I can change the pattern if I want to. Let's zoom in. There we go. So let's go back to the standard satin. Standard satin is just going back and forth. If we put a pattern in there, now you can see that there's been stitches applied there. We can easily see the difference between the two in the 3D. So here we can see that we have the pattern applied to it. And if I make it just the standard satin, now you can see how it looks different. So that's kind of the difference is, if I'm set on the satin pattern, the override stitch option is not available to me because the satin stitch is literally just one stitch on each side of the vector path, going back and forth. If I have a pattern here though, then I can go ahead and override the stitches again and adjust that. So see now I have more rows. These are now 2 millimeter stitches rather than 3.5. I can change the density. Remember, the higher number here is a less dense stitch out. A lower number is a more dense stitch out, as is this distance is between the stitches here. Here, let's go ahead and make it actually less dense so that we can see that again. Oops, I'm actually doing the stitch override. Let's go back to our standard 3.5. I'm going to make this density higher so we can see that. There we go. We also have our connection end here as well, which is just the same as in the fill. So I can change my connection end here. I can also go ahead and change my chisel distance if I am on the chisel. For satin stitch, I do have another drop-down menu for short stitches. Here, let's go actually back to my satin. I'm going to make this into a standard satin. So we have a drop-down menu now for short stitch. Short stitches are referring to these stitches right here. So when your satin shape comes along a sharp turn, there are shorter stitches applied so it doesn't get too dense along the corner part. This is where I can adjust how these stitches are applied. So right now they're just set on standard. I can switch it to none, which forces the stitches down here. I also have aggressive. I have standard we were already on. I have regular. So you can kind of see how it changes. When you set your recipe under your digitized worksheet properties with your machine type and your fabric type, it will set your short stitches at a certain style. It's probably best to keep it that way for your recipe, but if you wanted to change it, this is where you would do that. Another option here that we have for our satin path is our satin path column effects. This would actually add a jagged effect. Let's go ahead and do both. So see that we can choose both sides. First we'll do one side, second does the other side. We can change the randomness from 1 to 100. If I choose 1, it is not very random. If I choose 100, it will become more random here. This is a good tool if you are trying to get like a fur effect.